All right. We're here. I'm doing recordings of myself reading, just because. And right now I'm reading Perloo the Bold by AVI. And my first video was chapter 1. So right now we're going to dive into chapter 2. Here we go. A baffled Perloo rubbed his paws. "Can't you tell me more?" he asked. "All I can say," Lucabara replied carefully, "is that she's very old, almost 50, quite close to death." But why me?" Perloo repeated. When Lucabara merely gazed at him, Perloo half expected her to quote one of Mogwart's sayings. Perhaps knowing the length of a monomer's ear won't tell you if he can listen. Suddenly he said, "But what about Berwig? Does he want Jolene to see me?" Lucabara started. "Why do you even ask?" "Well, he is Jolene's only cub, and, I presume, the next grantor. And if Jolene is so close to death," Perloo faltered, "I just don't want to intrude in family matters." "I have no idea what Berwick thinks," Lucabara replied. "How come she picked you to get me?" Perloo asked. "I'm her first assistant." Perloo's eyes widened again. "You are?" Lucabara sniffed. "Didn't you know?" Perloo's pink nose turned purple with embarrassment. I don't keep up with things," he admitted. "My reading and living alone, it's the way I am." "Then how did you start meeting with Jolene in the first place?" Lucabara asked. "It was her idea, not mine. She must have heard about my books and my reading. She sent for me. We talked about history. It became a regular thing for a while." "When did you see her last?" "Now that you mention it, it's been some time," Perloo said vaguely. "She's been ill for some time," Lucabara said. "I didn't know," Perloo said, flustered. Well, you see, it was always she who invited me. I would never presume to invite myself. When I didn't hear from her, I just thought she didn't want to talk to me anymore." An awkward silence filled the burrow. Perlou sensed that Lucabara was holding back something. Surely, as Jolene's first assistant, she would know why the grantor wanted him. "Perlou," she said, as if reading his mind, "if you want to know why Jolene needs to see you, don't you think you'd best go to her?" Perlou scratched himself between the ears. The truth was, he hated leaving his burrow during Cold Cross. It was freezing outside. Inside, he had his books to read, roots to nibble, and hot tea, sweet or not. Then he realized what he was thinking. "Forgive me," he murmured. "I'm heartless as a dead twig. Of course I'll see her." "Then let's go," Lucabara urged. She stood, flicked her neck tuft high, and drew her smock string tight. Feeling he had little choice, Perlou took a final swallow of the tea, adjusted his smock, took up the candle, and headed for the tunnel. "What about your fire?" Lucabara asked. "It'll keep till I get back," Perlou assured her. "I'm sure Jolene won't keep me long." Lucabara said nothing. Perlou, still trying to puzzle out why Jolene would want him, and she on her deathbed, hopped up the tunnel. Mind only on his mission, he pulled the door open, to be rewarded by a burst of snow and wind that extinguished his candle. He had forgotten about the storm. "Bird's fur," he said to himself, and slammed the door shut. Lucabara snorted. Leaving the gutted candle beneath the door against his return, Perlou drew his smock neck string tighter, then groped in the dark for the door again. This time, when he opened it, he did so cautiously. The entire world was white. So thick with snow was both sky and ground it was difficult to know where one end and the other began. As for the intensity of the cold, it took Perlou's breath away. "Don't you carry a pike?" he heard Lucabara ask. Though standing only a few hops from him, she appeared as little more than a smudge. "I'm not much of a hunter," he explained. "Besides, my pike is broken." Perlou thought Lucabara gave a little shake of her head. "I'll break the snow," she said. "Don't get too far in front," he called. "You're hard to see. Keep your eyes open," she suggested, and started off. This Lucabara isn't nice at all, Perlou thought. All he said, however, was, "I'll try." Since Perlou's burrow was situated in a dell, they had to climb out of it. In good weather, 10 easy hops should have sufficed. But now the deep driving snow made the going difficult. Having no pike, Perlou had to extend his stubby arms out to either side for balance. Then he spread his long bare feet into a wide stance and began to hop clumsily uphill. It was hard going. The cascading snow, whipped by wild winds, came at him from all directions at once. Seeing was difficult. Hearing and smelling were diminished too. Perloo could only hope it would be better than when they got out of the dell. It proved worse. Though the snow no longer swirled, it came at him in an unceasing barrage of what felt like tiny ice pellets. It was either bend over or be blinded. But when he bent down, he could see very little. The result was he kept bobbing up and down like a bird pecking seeds. Here we go, he heard Lucabara shout. The next moment, she was skiing down the mountainside. This better be important, mumbled as he flexed his skinny legs, leaned slightly forward over his long flat feet, jutted his head forward so he could see, or at least try to see, thrust his ears back for a streamlined effect, and pushed off. Quickly gathering speed, he skied down the mountainside. They soon entered an area thickly forested by long pole pines. Towering trees like columns seemed to be holding up the sky, though the pressure of the wind was less amidst the trees. Perloo had to struggle to avoid hitting their trunks. Simultaneously, he tried to keep Lucabara in sight. It was not easy. She was a fine skier. He was not. Even so, they continued on, hopping up inclines, skiing down slopes. Once trying to avoid a large twisted aspen tree, Perloo tumbled. The snow, soft and powdery, seemed to swallow him whole. Legs and arms flailing, he struggled to regain the surface. It was hard to dig upward, fall forward, and all at the same time haul himself up with his stubby arms. When he finally managed to right himself, Lucabara was standing before him, snorting. What's so funny? Perloo scowled with frustration. You look like a centipede going 12 different directions at once. I'm just out of practice, Perloo grumbled. I'll get you a lesson book, Lucabara returned with a teasing glance. Irritated by her teasing, Perloo snatched up some snow, packed a snowball, and heaved it at her. His aim was perfect, striking her right between the ears. At first taken back, Lucabara grinned, did a jump, turn, and sped off. For a moment, Perloo stared after her. What, he asked himself, had he gotten into him? Throwing snowballs? That was for cubs. They skied down 3 more ridges. Perloo only tumbled once more, then began the long and final climb. It was hard work, but alas, Lucabara announced, Here we are. Perloo, so bent over with climbing, he'd paid little mind to their location, looked up. The central tribe burrow, the biggest burrow in the territory, loomed over their heads. We'll use the side entrance, Lucabara said. When they reached it, however, it was closed. Lucabara frowned. It was open when I left, she said. I'm afraid we'll have to use the main entrance. They hopped around. As they drew close, a voice from the sentry post at the top of the burrow barked, Halt! Who approaches? Lucabara and Perloo looked up. 2 monomer sentries, bulky in thick smocks and wood-slab chest armor, their pikes armed with thorns, were peering down at them. It's me, Lucabara. Who's that with you? Perloo was about to shout his name when Lucabara hastily put a paw in front of his mouth and called, A friend. You may pass. Lucabara hesitated. Under whose command are you? She inquired. Berwig's. Lucabara grunted, but said no more. Hopping silently, she led Perloo to the burrow entryway. As she put paw to door, Perloo, suddenly feeling nervous, said, Lucabara, what's happening? Why did you try to the side entrance? Why didn't we want to say my name? How come there are sentries posted? I thought I saw their pikes tipped with thorns. Are we at war with the Felbarts again? I don't think so, Lucabara said. But you know why Jolene asked me to come, don't you? Shh, Lucabara warned. You'll speak to her soon. Then, in a grim tone, she added, mostly to herself, I hope. Ba-da-da! Chapter 2. So, that was a good chapter. Lots on the setting, which is cool. I like how Perloo doesn't have a pike, and I think that's gonna be something later on where he maybe gets one or something. Seems to me like he's not very active or adventurous. So I think in this story, he's probably going to use his wits a lot in whatever's going on. So, pretty good stories so far. And Yeah, we're reading Perloo the Bold by AVI. And see you on the next one. Mm-hmm.